Hi everyone, we're just giving a few stragglers a couple more moments to get in, and then we'll get going. All right, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. This is Adam Groh, Director of Customer Success at Core Software. This week, we will be focusing on defining your touchpoint strategy. We'll be doing a case study with two of our core customers and partners, profiling how they've leveraged our touchpoint tool for reporting and strategy with their not only retention teams, but with sales teams. As we dive into this, keep in mind that at the end of this broadcast, the webinar and the deck will be posted on our Zendesk portal for everyone to view after it's been complete. So just going over today's agenda real quick, we will start off with our core case study featuring the Columbus Crew SC and San Antonio Spurs. Under which, during these case studies, we'll show you how these teams have defined their touchpoint goals and strategies, and how these overarching strategies and goals applied to their reporting and their insights to help them drive their retention and sales models. So once we've kind of overviewed kind of their goals and strategies, we'll look back at the reporting that has come out of this data and go through the takeaways and next steps with each group as well as internally here at Core. Next, we'll just do a quick overview of the Core Touchpoints functionality. Obviously, we're talking about it with these teams. We're going to do a couple slides just reminding you guys how to use it and just a quick overview of it. And as always, we'll end with quick tips, deactivating sponsorship deal sheets. We didn't forget about you, the sponsorship group. A quick reminder for all of you, and Q&A as always. So with that being said, we'll just jump right into our presentation today. So we have three panelists that are joining us. Brian Friedhaber from the Core Software. He's one of our implementation success specialists. Brian joined us from the Carolina Hurricanes roughly 6 to 7 months ago and has been a great addition to the Core team. Joining us from our partner side, Brooke Gaddy from the San Antonio Spurs and Harrison Kim from the Columbus Crew. Both are very involved and oversee their CRM and analytics operations within their organizations, are great resources and have done some really cool stuff within their organization and particularly in this touchpoint area. So with that being said, I'm going to introduce Brian and let him kind of take over for these next couple of slides, walking through kind of what he did working with these teams to help them really flush out and define what they were doing with their touchpoint strategies. So Brian, welcome, and we'll give it to you to take away.
Sounds good. Thanks, Adam. As Adam mentioned here, the two case studies we're going to be looking at today are coming from the San Antonio Spurs and the Columbus Crew. Both have a little bit of unique background with Core. Starting off with Columbus Crew here, a little bit of background on them. They actually joined on with Core probably back in March, and one of the things that stuck out that made them part of this case study is that at the onset with their implementation, they spent a lot of time focusing on utilizing Touchpoints as well as Touchpoint goals. They had some practices and procedures in place prior to actually having a formal CRM module in place, and wanted to basically be able to take that and push it into Core's module and really start understanding what it is that those interactions mean to their season ticket members. So with that, I'm going to loop in Harrison here. And Harrison, if you wouldn't mind, walk us through kind of what your objective was as far as setting up the touch points and goals, as well as kind of the process and strategy that you guys went through internally on setting up everything.
Yeah, Brian, thanks. So before we kind of brought on a formal CRM system and brought on Core, we had kind of a very archaic way of tracking touch points. We had basically an Excel sheet where the reps could go in and kind of assign different touch points, which ended up being actually very similar to what we implemented within our formal system. But basically, this Excel sheet would keep track of all of their accounts and which accounts they've made, each touch point and when the last touch point was. So with that in mind, we wanted to kind of move forward into Salesforce and kind of keep that same process going. So again, the first process was defining those touch points, which I think we already had a pretty good grasp on what those touch points were going to be based on what we had been doing in the past. However, we had never really thought of assigning values to these different touch points and kind of determining which touch point is, I guess, more valuable than the other. So we'll see in a few slides kind of what we came up with for the actual values. But after we kind of got done with defining and assigning, we moved on to how we wanted to allow our kind of client service representatives to filter and streamline maybe some of these touch points as they're kind of trying to make touch point calls. So the goals themselves were actually based on our membership communities, which is kind of different subsections within our season ticket membership group, and then using the ticket groups as well based on tenure. They were able to kind of use two different filters to kind of help them get through the weeds and figure out who they wanted to make or who they wanted to reach out to for that given day. And then the touchpoint goals themselves were established based on kind of a combination of both what their community is, their location, a number of different factors. So actually, as you'll see, the actual goals that are listed by community aren't necessarily the same value for each customer, which we'll get into later.
Yeah, I think that's a unique point. And one thing, if you wouldn't mind expanding on a little bit, because I think initially a lot of teams, when they're setting up their goals, they're having a hard time figuring out, okay, how am I going to define these initial umbrella goals? And you guys obviously use the communities. Can you dive into that just a little bit further and explain the different communities that you have?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have 3 different communities within our season ticket membership. So soccer is a little bit unique from a season ticket base. We have kind of 3 very distinct communities, and the 3 are business, family, and social. And the way we communicate to those 3 different communities are very different. So it was very important to us to make sure we're using the Touchpoint tool in a way that would allow us to segment those different communities. So we use the goal functionality to assign whether it be business, family, or social, and that kind of allowed us a secondary filter rather than having a number of different goals. So I guess having the 3 communities consolidated the number of goals we had to help the reps.
Right. Yeah, and I know we'll address that too in one of the further slides here as well. No, that's perfect. Well, appreciate it, Harrison. The next slide we're going to look at here is as it relates to the San Antonio Spurs. San Antonio is a little bit different. They are one of our longer-standing customers and have been in the module and have been using touch points and goals. And for them, it was a little bit of a different approach this year, but they wanted to come at their off-season goals with a new, fresh perspective. So with this, I'm going to let Brooke lead in on her objective and kind of their process for assigning the touch points and goals.
So for us, it wasn't so much about actually getting the touch points in the system. Our reps had been tracking that back to the even pre-CRM days when they just tracked them in Arctics. It was more about giving them the visibility and ability to really monitor those accounts on their own and not rely on someone pulling out a report that they couldn't do like without the help of myself or one of their managers. So we really focused on how can we make this more visible to them. As far as our point values and how we assigned all of that, when we first started, we don't really have, a good way to go about it. No one really decided like a seat visit is more valuable than a gift or anything like that. So we just, weighted everything the same with it. And then we divided everyone up based on where you're seated. So that's how our service team is divided. We have our premium seating and then our better seating and our balcony seating. And so we divided them up that way. And we set their goals based on, it's kind of a combination of our reps' tenure and where they're seated. So it works out to where everyone that's in the upper plaza and balcony, all of their reps have been a new rep over the last season. So we actually have a higher goal for them than we do for some of our premium accounts that their rep has been with them longer for it. So we decided to go from the beginning of the renewal period to right before the next renewal period to just try and track that way, what really affects them during the course of the year.
That's great. That's great. No, I appreciate that, Brooke. Next slide we're going to look into here actually drives a little bit further into what Brooke mentioned in our previous slide there, and it actually relates more to assigning these points directly to the particular touch points in the system. And as Brooke mentioned, they went with more of a flat point total across all of theirs, with the idea in mind to be able to focus more on actually completing the touch point and seeing which touch points are completed against which customers, and not necessarily tapering those point totals based on the different touch points in the system. On the flip side of that, though, as Harrison mentioned, they actually put a lot of focus on tapering these different touch points based on the ones that they wanted to focus on more. So you'll see at the bottom there they have out-of-office appointments, which they're focusing heavily on in their office there, so it's set at a point total of 3, where some of the lower ones, such as outbound service calls, maybe a membership HQ visit during a game, is actually point total a little bit lower. And I'll just kind of have you add in a little bit there, Harrison, as to, I guess, I know you guys had some of these touch points in place previously, but just how you ended up assigning some of the point totals across these.
Yeah, so when we were looking at the top 3 here where we assigned 2, I think these were touch points that we felt affected the extension or renewal rate for our season ticket members greater than, an outbound service call. So I think that was kind of the thinking behind it, and it was something that for this season we simply wanted to kind of test out. I mean, for us with only 17 home games throughout the season, an in-seat visit is tough for us to reach out to kind of every single season ticket member. So that was something in particular that we really wanted to focus on. And there's also a universe of people, mainly in our social community, who they simply aren't going to be available for an in-seat visit. They're going to be busy, waving a flag and, pounding on a drum. So the in-seat visit for them isn't necessarily and as important, but we kind of use that or took that into account when we were calculating their goals.
Right. No, that's perfect.
Yeah, and this is Adam. I mean, I agree. Like the great part about this is there's really no right or wrong to this. Again, Harrison, you guys can't really go and do seat visits, so you're putting more value on other types of visits versus Brooke and the Spurs and basketball. There's not as much going on in the stands during the game, and so what's really great about this is 2 different strategies that are made just based on kind of your customer groups and who your demographic is coming to games. So really cool. As we transition to this next slide, I would like you guys, it's kind of the same thing as before, but Brian and I were talking, and really, can you guys also put in your thoughts about how you guys came up, what the process was for coming up with your touch points? Obviously, a lot of it's based on availability of inventory, whether it's tickets, while I was at the Jazz, we did VIP upgrades, which was a huge touch point for us. Can you guys talk about here where you guys, the process of coming up with your touch points, on this previous slide we looked at the values with it, but I'd also like to understand and explain to our viewers like how people are coming up with just the touch points, let alone the points to each one.
Yeah, I mean, for us, we had a general idea with the tracker that we're using before. As we kind of transitioned into Salesforce and Core, we did look to add some additional things. For example, the gift drop-off wasn't something that we were necessarily tracking within the previous, I guess, activity tracker or touchpoint tracker that we were using. So a lot of it was kind of, tapping into kind of Brian's knowledge of other, I guess, touchpoints that other teams were using and kind of looking at a larger list and then kind of paring down kind of what makes the most sense for our business. So that's what we kind of, and we obviously added some unique ones to us, like the membership HQ visit, that, something that is unique to kind of what we do on match days here. So it was kind of a combination of, having conversations with our client service reps, brainstorming on our own, and then kind of paring down a list that Brian helped develop.
Cool. Yeah, and then for ours, what we did was we had a pretty extensive list to start off with, and we really just tried to focus that down on what's the most important and what really goes in with the benefits that we give them as a season ticket member. Like, we put a lot of focus on event attendance because those are ones that we spend, a lot of money and a lot of time planning and is a large part of their benefits of being a member. So we wanted to just really focus on, like, what are those things that we're saying are benefits, and also kind of use this to judge, is that a benefit that really does benefit them, or are we just kind of giving them something they don't care about?
No, that's a great point. And I think that adds in a whole other layer to the touch points, is really starting to determine, what is truly a value to your season ticket holders, and what do you need to spend your time focusing on. Certainly, if you've got a touch point out there that you feel like you're putting a lot of energy into, and also a lot of money into in some cases, may come to find out with the reporting you do down the road that it's really not having the benefit that it thought it did. So. Great. Next slide we're going to look at here, and this relates a little bit back to how we talked about actually utilizing the ticket groups as well as the touchpoint goals to filter down and really allow reps to be able to slice and dice these goals over time. And I'm going to start actually from the bottom here and work my way up. So as Harrison mentioned in the first slide there, they went with more of a broader, flat approach where they created these 3 goals in the system that basically span their entire season ticket base. And then what he's done, and we'll see that a little bit as we get into the next slide here, is actually then segmented those down further, utilizing the ticket group. Whereas on the flip side, if we actually look at what the Spurs have done, as Brooke mentioned, she utilized her goals to identify where these different season ticket members are sitting in the arena. So, are they balcony? Are they the premium season ticket members? So she's defined it there. And then as you'll see, she's also utilized the ticket groups for the reps to be able to then drill down to determine, hey, who are our most important season ticket members and who are the ones that we need to spend our time focusing on? And then this is the slide that would obviously illustrate the different ticket groups. So again, referencing back to Columbus here, they now have their 3 social communities. But one interesting thing that they've done is on the back end in Arctic, they've actually denoted how long season ticket members have been on board with them. So the reps are not only able to say, okay, I want to look at everybody in my business community, but maybe today I want to focus heavily on our rookie season ticket members. Harrison, I know you guys put a lot of time into your ticket groups. I'll just let you expand. Is there anything else that you guys have done unique with those ticket groups that you find your reps are focusing on?
Yeah, I mean, I think the main ones in this group, or the main ticket groups that our reps are focusing on are, mainly our rookie, premium, and Nordic, those kind of bottom 3 on this screenshot. And our Nordic is kind of almost hand in hand with our social group. That's kind of our supporter section. So, those 3 are kind of the along with a few other factors that we looked at, were kind of what we based our actual goals on. So even though our goals are kind of based on community, our actual assigning of assigning of the goals themselves were more based on ticket group, as well as things like tenure and a little bit more robust location. But those were kind of what the true goals are, is more in the ticket group rather than the touch point goal drop down.
Great. And on the flip side there, Brooke, take us to walk through some of the ticket groups that you have there. How are your reps utilizing this filtering function when they're looking at their goals and trying to obviously organize their day?
Yeah, so we ended up going just based off of the package they have. So our reps have, a handful of rookies all the way through people who have been with us for 40+ years. So we use it instead to focus that way. And the part that's been great about that and that little progress bar and how we can track it is they're actually getting their progress tied into their commission for this year and their bonus for it. So if they don't have at least 90% of their book of business at 100% to goal, they won't get their extra kicker thrown at the end of the season. So it's great for us to have this because then they can really just completely own that process because they're pretty invested in it when you start talking about a bonus that they get for it.
Absolutely. No, and that's a good point. Obviously, we've got one of the areas we're going to be focused on here next ties into reporting and some of the stuff we've done to obviously help you guys out in that. But no, that's a great point. So.
Yeah, thanks, Brian, and that's correct. This is a good point to kind of transition over into our next section. But before we do, I actually had a really good question come through from one of our viewers. The question was, how did you make the ticket group by tenure? So can we get an answer from Brian, or I think it was Harrison who did that? Like, how do you create your ticket group based on tenure? What was the criteria for doing this? So.
Yeah, so the tenure was more of rookie and non-rookie. So we were basically just looking at, or I think we actually did second year as well, if I'm not mistaken. So we did a rookie was just being any new season ticket for that season, and then a second year was any new. So if I'm looking at 2016 season tickets, any new 2015 that also has 2016 season ticket.
Yeah, and I think to kind of further flesh out his question, how were you able to identify that through the ticketing group? Were you saying new? I mean, I think for sophomore or a second-year buyer, how do you even? I understand the rookie concept where you have a new or renewal, right? But how do you actually do that second year? Is there a different price code, or within the ticketing system, how are you identifying that?
With price codes. So we would just select our price code from 2015 that was identify a new season ticket holder in 2015, and then look at our renewal price codes from 2016 and any account that fell into both of those buckets. That's what became a sophomore account.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that's a very creative way to actually use ticket groups. Great question, and that's awesome. So cool. With that, we're kind of running a little bit long here, or we're not long, but off schedule. So I'll just keep us moving along here. So now that we have all this data, really, the question becomes: is how do we leverage it? How do we use it? What is the end goal with this, right? Obviously, we aggregate it. Now we need to report on it, and then hopefully from the reporting, we can gain some insights and adjust our touchpoint strategy. And so one of the things at Core is we started working, closely with the Spurs and with the crew. We noticed, we need to have more advanced reporting than what's currently available. So working with these two groups, we really drove home a Tableau report. And in order to really help you guys understand what we did with them, I think this is a really cool thing that Brian worked on with our success analyst, Jacob Rosen, who just joined us a couple months ago from the MBA program out of Oregon. They put their minds together and they came up working with these teams of a really good way to actually start displaying this information, but not just displaying it statically, but dynamically, and a way that you can actually start filtering in various ways and understanding your data. So now Jacob and Brian are just going to kind of slowly take us through how they came up with this concept of this report we're going to show you guys. So welcome, Jacob.
Thanks, Adam. Glad to be a part of the Core crew. I've been here about 3 months or so, just joined from the Oregon MBA program. But Brian and I work together on this a lot. That's how we want our implementations and success team to blend together. Brian wears a lot of hats. Everyone wears a lot of hats. And so when working with the crew and the Spurs, then Brian and I sort of tag team to look more into reporting. If we have all this data, what are we going to do with it? How can it lead to more results? So Brian and I got together, looked at what we could do from a report level to both look at the overall summary data of Touchpoints and also from an individual rep or account level as well. So their teams were gathering this data, but us from a reporting perspective weren't doing a good enough job of putting it back into their hands and using Tableau, one of our OEM partners, to give them all sorts of dashboarding and functionality that Tableau enables. So we have some data sources for each of our core modules within ticketing, sponsorship, and then premium suite, but we needed a new one to specifically answer the questions of Touchpoints, of Touchpoint goals, and of the actual Touchpoint activities that are happening towards those goals for those accounts. So you can see, to a certain extent, the architecture that we use to build this new custom data source within Tableau using core data from these respective teams. And then we wanted to have the ability to create these new dashboards and reports with filters and drill downs and all this sorts of fun functionality that Tableau allows that you don't normally get out of an Excel or SSRS reports. And that's what we want to provide back to teams, is this sort of dynamic functionality where it's really interactive and really lights up this data that you're putting into the system.
Yeah, and if I can expand on that too, I think one of the biggest holes that we felt like we had, and Adam's going to show it on the next page here, is this just ability for both reps and managers to view a report and really drill down to, what goals they have out there and what they're really working towards throughout the day.
Yeah, so this is one of the dashboards within this new Touchpoint dashboards workbook that we can publish up to a site. And this is the Touchpoint log. It shows the Touchpoint goal and the reps within that goal and the points totals that they have within there. You can see on the right there's the different filters. You can see the Spurs logo at the top with all their different properties they have within Spurs Sports Entertainment. You can see that you can filter within the season, within the Touchpoint goals, reps, etc. And we'll show a little bit in some of these upcoming slides as well about some of the further functionalities you can use. So this is the fun part, really. This is the fun part with Tableau, where you can build sorts of dashboard actions. So here, this one that Adam just zoomed into, you can see that there's this Touchpoint goal, and then you can click on it, and out will appear all of the individuals within that goal. So in this example, we clicked on business community for the Columbus Crew, and then appeared all of the different accounts that have Touchpoint goals within there. You can filter based on the goal, you can filter based on the season, you can filter based on the rep as well. So this is an example now on the bottom right here where we filtered just on the rep Alexandra Couch, and we looked at all of hers across different Touchpoint goals. So if you are Alexandra Couch, you can look through here, you can filter just to see the accounts that you have attributed to you, and you can sort by percentage available. So you can use it as a checklist as a rep to go as a checklist to say, all right, all these people have 0% of their Touchpoint goal completed. Let me go through here and accomplish that as I see fit. So here are some of the other filters as well that Adam's just focusing in on, all the different capabilities you can have within Tableau. And that's, again, the fun part is these are all dynamic. The report and the view will change based on your choices for these different filters. And then the kind of money thing here that Brian and I worked on, Brian and I kept going go back and forth, what makes this the best possible report it can be? And here it is that we're showing in these highlights. If you were Alexander Couch or one of these other reps for the Crew or the Spurs or whatever team, you would then click on that account info person. So in this case, it's Melissa Shocker, and a option appears to click on a link that takes you exactly to their Salesforce contact page. So using that as an actual to-do list, you could sort by percentage, see the people that you need to still reach out to and get touch points on. You can then go exactly to the contact page and do all the things that you would do normally as a rep from that perspective. So Tableau then connects back to your systems for all this sorts of functionality. We maybe haven't used links that often in Tableau yet, but this is the fun kind of best practice in terms of all different things in Tableau. We're using dashboard actions, we're using dashboard filters, and then we're using a link to go back to the system, and that's sort of the holy grail of using Tableau, is it can do all these sorts of different things, using it as a log, using it for reps, using it for managers.
Yeah, thanks, Jacob. And finally, just to kind of, I'll let Jacob pick back up here, but just kind of to bring it all together is, we showed you how you could see just the rep goals overall and how you could drill in through the various filters, which Jacob and Brian did a fantastic job with. But really now, how do we sum this all up? How do we show how you're tracking as an organization? And they did a great job developing some really cool dashboards here. And you'll notice as we click through also, before I give it back over to Jacob, here's those touch point goals that we showed you that are, and you'll see with Columbus on the next page that they defined early on at the very beginning of this presentation, and now it's all coming in full circle, and you're seeing it all just come to life and generate in a very consumable format.
Yeah, and then you can see this is a pretty straightforward-ish dashboard where it's just filtering on the season and showing these 3 touch point goals. And then from there, we'll show the overall start and end date, and then all the different points and targets and remaining percentages, and some nifty little charts at the bottom that bring those, you can kind of eyeball it yourselves to see the difference between 60% or 50%. With the Columbus Crew as well, the difference, you can see the percentages, and you can use different colors within Tableau to bring that to life to make it pop a little bit more. So it's not just grids, it's not just looking like Excel, but a little bit cleaner, but it's actually, a visualization, and that's what we really want Tableau to be for us, is to be something that brings this data to life a lot more.
So with that being said, thanks, Jacob. I would like kind of to transition back to Harrison and Brooke a little bit, and as we've gone through these 2 dashboards, whether it's the touchpoint summary or the log, as you guys can see up in the corner there, can you guys talk about how it's been adopted by, let's say, the reps or the managers, and really, has the response been positive? Do you see more people wanting to engage in the Touchpoint plan and be part of it? Just overall, how's the reporting helped move you guys along further?
This is, I guess for us, we have rolled it out for mainly the managers at this point, just based on where we are in the sales cycle. We have, our reps are kind of more focused right now on extending accounts for 2017, but the managers themselves, they have really enjoyed kind of this summary page, and it's been very helpful in terms of diving new accounts. It's not something that a lot of the reps have. We've basically tested it with 2 reps, and they haven't used it on a day in and day out basis, but they have enjoyed it when they have used it.
Very cool. And how about you, Brooke?
We rolled it out to our reps, I guess 2 or 3 weeks ago now, and yeah, they've been all over it. It's they continue to just show them, like, here's where you find it, here's how it works, because it's not something that they're familiar with at all. But our managers have really helped them along in that by doing some, quick little contests and stuff during the week to get them to put in some additional touch points and just kind of keep them engaged with what's going on and get them more familiar with how the dashboard works.
Yeah, awesome. You kind of have to approach it, as we all know, from the manager level and the rep level. It's really hard to get full adoption if your reps are into it, but your managers aren't really looking at the report, or vice versa. If your managers are into it, maybe you get a little more adoption from the reps, but it's still not something they're willing to do and want to do. And so if you can kind of attack it from both angles and get both groups loving the reports they're seeing and the information that's at their fingertips, it's kind of the perfect scenario. And I think that you guys have done a really nice job developing a full system here that is been well thought out from the top down, meaning you guys have put together a good strategy, good goals, great touch points. You've aggregated the data, and now you guys are starting to report on it and in a consumable, easy format. So with that being said, that we've kind of circled around, what are the takeaways? You guys have only been doing this for, a year or so, like at this level with these types of reports. So, now we're moving into the next season. What are some of the focus? What are some of the takeaways for each of you and your organizations now that you guys are ready to move forward and into the next step?
Yeah, for us, I think that. For us, I think the biggest thing is, this first bullet point is the reassessing our goals for 2017. I think when we started the goal building process, goal setting process, I guess, we were a little bit overzealous in the number of touch points we would like to our reps to have, given the time of year that we kind of launched this. So I think reassessing that and maybe setting some more realistic goals for each account, and maybe highlighting, being a little bit more specific in the ones that we highlight for a higher touch point goal. And then I think the next step is kind of right in line there with the assigning of points. I think we had an idea of what the most effective touch points were, but now once we kind of get through this renewal cycle, going through and identifying if there were any touch points that were, I guess, more likely to extend a specific membership.
Excellent. And how about you, Brooke?
Yeah, going off what Harrison said, we want to look at reevaluating, does our breaking up our model by where they are in the arena make sense? Does our touch point weighting make sense? Like, we really just wanted to get something down and, give it a try and just see how does this work? Do we like what we're getting from this? And then the other part too, we have a wait list, we have a pretty sold out building. So, looking at if they hit their touch point goal, what does that mean in terms of their renewal? If we're getting them to 100+%, are they more likely to renew? Does it have an effect on them? Like, just being able to dive in more to what that actually means for their renewal intentions.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I mean, what's the point of aggregating it all, looking at it all, if you're not actually going back and analyzing it and adjusting? So awesome. And then I think on our end, there's a couple learnings as well, and I think things we're going to take moving forward for the product and all of our partners that we work with. Brian and Jacob, you guys want to go through kind of what, I know you guys were having a conversation about this yesterday, kind of what your guys' insights were for us?
Yeah, and that's the beauty here to a certain extent, is that Brian and I and Adam and Vineet and everyone else here on staff, Dan, Clay, we're all, Mark, all the people here in the New York office, Vancouver office, we're always working, back and forth together on ideas. What would be the best case scenario for this report going forward? How can we add more functionality to it? So we have a drill down sort of activity functionality we want to make better within here to show the activities and the touch points and the people who are doing those within those touch point goals. We want to enhance that before we sort of roll it out to everyone, because otherwise, if we're bringing in all activities, things that wouldn't be great. We want to make sure it's the best sort of product to roll out as a report. We want to create more reports. As Brooke just mentioned, do these touch points make a difference? Oh, that'd be a cool report in the future to look at those exact accounts and look at their revenue, to look at their touch points, see if it's making a difference, find ways to put that data back in the hands of the clients we work with, and just sort of improve, iterate, and monitor it from there to see if teams are using these reports, how can we make them more usable, how can we incorporate more links or actions within them. And I think Brian and I are just starting to chat more, and probably will have some more input on there how we can continue to improve these going forward.
Yeah, and I think just to add on that too, one thing we really, after we've had a couple weeks to really kind of evaluate how they're working for some of these teams, we want to add in a lot more visualizations to these reports too. I know, Brooke, you mentioned, kind of those weekly contests to have reps, putting in touch points to get them used to using the system. Those are the types of visualizations we want to add in there. So if a manager wants to run a weekly touch point goal because they're making a big push in the off season to do out-of-office visits with their season ticket members, we want to present that in a way that's visual so that the reps can get on there every day and kind of increase that gamification, if you will.
And it's been really fun and collaborative. I'm relatively new here. Brian's been here just a few months longer than me or so. So it's been a fun, explorative process. Just kind of, toss ideas out, see what we can do in Tableau, make sure that the data is in the system right, and from there, lots of things are possible to add all this functionality, build more visualizations, and then again, get the data better in the system. All that's kind of a loop. The more communication, the better this all can be long term.
Awesome. Yeah, well, thank you both to Harrison and Brooke for joining us. I know you are both very busy, and it's been great having, it's always fun to have teams join us and partners of CORE. It's a little bit translates a little bit better to the other teams who are on here learning. And so we appreciate you taking the time to join us. And then also thank you to Brian and Jacob, who've done a great job with this, working hand in hand with Harrison and Brooke. So real quickly, we thought, well, we're doing some Touchpoint stuff. We probably just better do a quick overview for anybody who's not using it. And so, just a quick review of setting up your Touchpoints. You add them via a controlled drop-down CORS activity screen here. Just go to configuration records, open up the configuration records area and go into the Touchpoints, and you can just go ahead and you can add in the Touchpoints, and really for the rest it's quite simple. They just do it through the activity screen as they're going through and having their phone calls and having their appointments. So once you guys just start adding them here, and as you can see on my screen, the points, and you can even put costs and perceived value. So again, the season ticket member gift bag may be worth $15, but the perceived value is $50. You can put that in and start tracking that. I think, maybe that's the next level for a Brooke and a Harrison type organization that's already doing a great job of tracking, and now let's take it to the next level and really start analyzing what does this mean, is it effective, and if so, what kind of value is being perceived out of it. And then once you've done that, reps use it very easily. Like I mentioned, they can go in and they can go use it from the activity screen, or we also have a bulk uploader, and I'm kind of getting ahead of myself here, but it provides the ability to add multiple touch points all at once. And a good example of that is a lot of teams use season ticket member events. Did they come to the golf event? Did they come to the autograph party? That type of stuff. If you're keeping an electronic count of that through your ticketing system or some other medium, you can actually just upload these very quickly through mass upload. And then right here, you can just upload your Touchpoint goals. As always, if you're not utilizing Touchpoints and you want to start utilizing them better and want to work with one of our success consultants, feel free to reach out and we can work with you, just as Brian and Jacob have with these teams. We can help you guys define your Touchpoint strategies and goals and really bring them to life, and so you guys can start analyzing them the same way that these two organizations have. And vice versa, if you're using them but the data's not being reported or not being utilized the right way, feel free to also reach out. We can get this report very easily uploaded into your system and working for you guys within a matter of days, and now you can start using the data and looking at it. So a very quick win across your sales organization by showing them, hey, here's what you can do. So with that being said, we're going to jump into quick tips. I'll go through them real quickly, and then we'll do some Q&A if there's any more questions or anything that we can solve for people. So today's quick tip, we wanted to focus a little bit more on sponsorship since this was very Touchpoint ticketing driven. And so we just wanted to remind everybody that there's a new feature called deactivating. Well, it's not called anything. It's just the ability to deactivate the contract from the deal sheet summary page. And what's really great about this is it's right here, right on the deal sheet summary page, and actually coming soon at the end of this year in our Q4 release, it will actually be on the activity screen as well. And what's great about this button, as you can see here, is when you click it, it has two different buttons. One's bad deal, one's lost deal. Bad deal, it simply means maybe it was an accidental deal, trash. A lot of times guys are just creating extra deals that they just need to get rid of that were on accident. You can just hit, bad deal, or we can change the verbiage to accidental trash, however you guys want to call it, or they can mark it as a lost deal. And what's really great about marking it as a lost deal now is it pushes the status to deal lost, deactivates the contract for you, but it also tracks the objection as well. So you guys are able to start doing analysis, or like I say, it's always valuable information to be able to go back 5 years and say, give me everybody that we pitched and why did we lose them. So a really cool little feature that we just wanted to show everybody, and if you have any questions on it, again, reach out to your core contact success person. So finally, just to finish it off, our last quick tip, just a quick reminder, we just have released our Q2 2006 upgrade, and we just want to make sure that everybody has done it. We know not everybody has, but now starting with this quarterly release, it's on the team to go ahead and do the update themselves. You should have received an email telling you how to do it. It's very simple. It takes for Salesforce or Dynamics Online, it's a very quick process. On-prem is a little bit more fleshed out, but still very simple. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to the help desk or your success manager, and they can help you get it installed. But it's important that you get it installed. There's really great stuff like that deactivate contract button in there, as well as a bunch of other stuff. And plus, our Q3 2006 release is just around the corner, and you want to be up to date with Q2 before you move to Q3. yeah. Anyways, that's it. I'm going to see if we have any questions. Before we do, thank you everybody for joining us. It was a great webinar. We love when teams and partners join us. As I stated at the very beginning, you can access this within the next 24 hours up on our Zendesk portal. Both the deck and the recording of this presentation will be up there. So that said, I'm going to look at our questions. It looks like we have the one from earlier, which we already answered, and there's one other that asks for a quick definition of a touch point. I hope that we help define that throughout this whole process, but obviously, you know, different teams have different definitions of touch points, but a lot of people call it interactions with ticket buyers that are above and beyond the Call of Duty that you're actually using to drive retention and quality points and that type of stuff. So if there's any other questions, please feel free to send them in now. Looks like we're okay. So everybody, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you on the next webinar. Thanks.